3, 2, 1.
Defying gravity. That's a lot of what we do, or at least it feels like that's a lot of what we do in the world. So much going on, just the chaos in the world, other than, what could be going on in your life personally. We're always feeling like we have to defy gravity. And why is that? Well, because we all have a tendency to protect the old map of ourselves. You know what I mean by that? By the map of ourselves, the concept of who we are and how we relate to the rest of the universe, our perspective, positive and negative, of how life works and how we work in it. And sometimes, some of it is a bunch of hooey. It's a lot of junk ideas floating around in our head. A lot of map of lack, a map of limitation, a map of not good enough, smart enough, cute enough, a map that is so familiar, has been in our heads and in our bodies, really, in our hearts for so long that it's familiar. It has its own shortcuts. It's oddly comfortable, even normal. But all that's not true. All those negative things we think about, all that lack of limitation and junk ideas that I'm constantly talking about, none of that's true. None of that is part of the revelation, part of the revealing of the divinity that is within each and every one of us. We could have a map of mistrust in us that prevails, and that causes us to be unable to be vulnerable with others, and that keeps us from intimacy with others, and thus we feel lonely and isolated. Ever have that in your life? Or maybe we're barely engaging with people or nature. Doesn't necessarily have to be with people, but with the world around us. And that makes us miss many beautiful parts of living when we do that. And until we break that cycle, until we change that habit loop, because it's just a mental habit, until we believe in where we want to go, where we have decided to go, where we will reveal the divine that is within us, the divine intelligence, the divine love, the divine wisdom, we shall keep that same old path, that same old routine, whether it's positive or negative, physical, mental, or emotional, wherever it's coming from. That routine is between the cues of life, C-U-E, the cues, the triggers of life. Some triggers in life are actually positive. Those triggers that tells your brain to check your map of reality for the quickest way to your habit, whatever that habit is. That habit could be stay at home. That habit could be not to engage. That habit may be to remember some junk idea that you're not worth it, or that you're second rate. And the reward of our actions, the reward of that routine can be safety, can be ease, can be moving away from the fear or the risk and just moving past it without dealing with it, without knowing that it's hurting us, keeping us back. And that causes our mind to keep that path in what you may call a mental Mapquest. That's how advertising is created. Did you know that? The product that is being advertised is your routine. Between the cue, so there's a cue, there's a routine, and there's a result. So the routine in the middle is between the cue, the problem or condition of what's going on, and the reward, which is the result that you want, that in the case of a product, the product will give you. Let me tell you a little story about a product. One day in the early 1900s, a guy named Claude Hopkins, who was a well-known accounting executive, was approached by an old friend who wanted a national promotional campaign idea for a toothpaste this guy had created called Pepsodent. Now, Hopkins had a huge reputation, turning dozens of previously unknown products such as Quaker Oats, Goodyear tires, the Bissell carpet sweeper, Van Camp's pork and beans. Remember, that's still around, Van Camp's pork and beans. He made those into household names with his advertising acumen. But Hopkins knew that selling toothpaste was financial suicide. Hardly anybody brushed their teeth during the early 1900s. And thus the nation had a lot of dental problems. But nonetheless, he finally agreed. He finally agreed to undertake the campaign because his friend and the makers of Pepsodent gave Hopkins a 6 months option on a block of stock. Okay? So he started putting that together. And within 5 years, Hopkins turned Pepsodent into one of the best-known products on earth and helped create a toothbrushing habit across the nation. In fact, a decade after the first Pepsodent campaign, polls indicated that toothbrushing had become a ritual for more than half the American population. Before, it was like 7% in polls where people said they brushed their teeth or not. Now, how did he do this? What was the science behind this? Well, Hopkins had found a certain kind of cue and reward that fueled a particular habit. Remember? Cue, there's the cue, then there's a habit, the routine, and then the reward. It's a connection so powerful that even today, these basic principles about cue, product, and reward as far as advertising is used by video game designers, food companies, hospitals, millions of salespeople globally. What happened was he created a craving that makes the cues and the rewards work and powers the habit loop. To sell Pepsodent, Hopkins needed a trigger, right? That would create a need for the toothpaste's daily use. He had to persuade people, and that was the trigger, to use it every day for it to become a habit. So he started doing research. He dug deep. He did a lot of reading. Remember, it's 1900s, so there's no internet. So he had to actually go to a library and read. And he found this reference in the middle of some dental book about the mucin plaques on teeth. That kind of yellow film that's on your teeth, especially if you don't brush them. And he called that the film. And he wrote about this, and he said, that gave me an appealing idea. I resolved to advertise this toothpaste as a creator of beauty to deal with that cloudy yellow film. So despite the lack of medical evidence that a toothpaste even helped remove the film, he decided to exploit this discovery. The film, as a cue, would trigger a habit to use Pepsodent. And soon, cities were plastered with Pepsodent ads, saying things like this: note how many pretty teeth are seen everywhere. Millions are using a new method of teeth cleaning. Why would any woman have dingy film on her teeth? Pepsodent removes the film. So Hopkins had found a cue that was simple, had existed for ages, and was so easy to trigger that an advertisement could cause people to comply automatically. And to top it, the reward, as Hopkins envisioned it and as it was advertised, was even more enticing. After all, who doesn't want to be more beautiful, have a prettier smile, especially when all it takes is a quick brush with Pepsodent. You wonder where the yellow went when you brush your teeth with Pepsodent. Within 3 weeks of that campaign starting, the demand exploded. The company couldn't even keep up with the orders. And within a decade, Pepsodent was the top selling goods in the world and remained America's best-selling toothpaste for more than 30 years. 30 years. With over 65% of Americans having a tube of that in their medicine chests. All because he realized there was a cue and a routine and a result. The cue was this film on your teeth because you didn't brush them, you didn't clean them. You used Pepsodent, and the result was a beautiful smile. So like Mapquest or Waze, mental habits take you the fastest way to your destination, right? That's the mental habit. That's the routine. Based on the parameters you give it, though. Your perspective on how life works, what you believe about who you are and how you work in the universe. So to change that map, to change that routine, whatever the cue is, the cue could be about relationships, the cue could be about your financial situation, your bodily health, the cue could be about your peace of mind, whatever it is. We have to reboot the program of the map. We must change the routine of the habit of manifesting so that the routine is positive, bold, brave, loving, prosperous, and deep in the knowledge that the universe has our back. We got to start there. We have to remember that the universe has our back. That entertaining God only is the only type of ego we should engage in. And that encouraging our growth is part of evolving, is part of the journey to a great life. Now, I know when we work on changing that perspective, those attitudes, those mental habits or states, sometimes, most of the time, we go into initial state of chaos. I'm falling apart, you might say and feel. And and I've talked about this before, it's what's called a growth period, or can be called a growth period. There may be other terms for that time. And in that growth period, your map of reality may seem to get torn, get wrinkled, get crumpled up, which can be scary and disconcerting. I'm not taking that away, but it's actually a good sign. Things are changing. Things are rerouting. New pathways in the brain are forming. Even though your Mapquest doesn't feel comfortable upgrading to the new Waze. Do you remember that? Do you remember, for most of us, not all of us, when we stopped using Mapquest and started using Waze because Waze seemed to be more accurate? Waze seemed to find us to our destination in an easier pattern. But sometimes that was uncomfortable to switch that over, and some people didn't. Some people still use Google Maps. They didn't want to switch over. It was too complicated. It was too new, and I don't need to change. And so what? It's not as easy in the old way, in the Mapquest way, in the original Mapquest way. Remember, we are not the map. You are not the map. You're the map maker. You're the cartographer using a tool called your map of reality to navigate through life. Great book by James Allen, and in it he says, mind is the master power that molds and makes. And man is mind, people are mind, and evermore he takes the tool of thought and shaping what he wills. Brings forth 1,000 joys, 1,000 ills. He thinks in secret, and it comes to pass. Environment is but his looking glass. James Allen from As a Man Thinketh. This week, as I was thinking about this talk, Rebooting Your Mapquest, I was reading a little research study about some experiments in 2018. And they were investigating how people's perception of time and their idea of the pursuit of happiness influenced each other. And I just want to bring out a few of their findings. And they discovered that we need to remember that our brain was built for an earlier era where we were looking at all the negative things, all the things that would hurt us, and remembering those things so that we didn't get hurt in the future. As psychologist Rick Hansen said in Buddha's Brain, the practical neuroscience of happiness, love, and wisdom, he said, the mind is like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. We allow these kinds of thoughts, these negative thoughts that put us into that routine, into that mental loop of lack and limitation, et cetera, junk ideas. Because, like I said, prehistoric humans had to focus on avoiding wild animals and predators. And a part of our brain, it's back here, but it's still there. It still talks. It remembers that habit and that routine of absorbing negative thoughts and experience for protection. For protection, not just safety, but protection of ease of life, so that I don't have to work harder, so that I don't have to think smarter. We believe that dwelling on the negative can be helpful. And many people often focus on a problem and its worst case outcome because they believe that this will push them into action. Some people do that. Some people think about the negative because that somehow motivates them to take action. But then you're living in fear. You're constantly in fear of the next thing. Now, fear can be good. Fear can be a motivator. But do you want to live in fear all the time? Or maybe you're just too lazy to make the changes necessary to create the life you want. I've been too lazy sometimes to do that in the past. Or maybe you're afraid of change and uncertainty, because in change there can be uncertainty. And so you remain in the familiarity and mediocrity of your easy but presently negative circumstances. Our habits keep us stuck in disempowering patterns. And when we challenge those maps of reality, when we challenge those maps of habits, we may be surprised to discover just how many negative and disempowering thoughts we routinely have. Listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. Talk to yourself. Listen to yourself. React in your mind when you see something happening. Another thing they discovered is when you train yourself to focus on gratitude, even of the smallest things in your life, your perspective changes and your happiness increases. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "Cultivate the habit of being grateful for every good thing that comes to you and to give thanks continuously. And because all things have contributed to your advancement, you should include all things in your gratitude." I've spoken about this many times. Gratitude, great attitude, is changing your perspective and thus changing your life, because your perspective is on that which you appreciate, that which brings you happiness and joy. And speaking of happiness, another thing they discovered was think about what happiness actually means. And here's a great exercise for you. Write down your perfect day. What is your perfect day? It could be anything. Maybe write down a few different perfect days. Ask yourself, what makes me happy or excites me? What in my life am I proud of and want to be committed to and continue having in my life? What in my life do I enjoy most and want to continue doing or experiencing? Who do I love? Who loves me? bringing all those things into a perfect day. And you can live that perfect day. You can live that perfect day every day if you so decide, if you so declare. You change your focus on what you have decided to have. You change your physiology if you must. Don't just sit there. Get up, stretch, take a walk, do a power pose, dance, sing. Change your physiology when you feel your map of reality being stuck in this lack of limitation and old stories and junk ideas. Get up, walk around, move around, sing a song, listen to your favorite music. Change your vocabulary. There's another thing we can do to change the routine. Change our vocabulary. I slip. You probably hear me slip sometimes when I'm speaking here, but we got to get rid of those words wish. We got to get rid of that word want or might or will even, and use words like are, we are, or I am. That is now, that is present. That is the power of using present tense, the power of now, saying I am XYZ. I am going to right now do XYZ, be XYZ. All of this changes your mindset. It uses the brain's plasticity to change our perspective and thus change our life. Walt Whitman wrote this great, great poem. And he said, "Oh, we can wait no longer. We too take ship, O soul. Joyous we too launch out on trackless seas, fearless for unknown shores on waves of ecstasy to sail amid the wafting winds, chanting our chant of pleasant exploration. O brave soul, O farther, farther sail. O daring joy, but safe are they not, all the seas of God? O farther, farther sail." You are a personal representative of the living spirit, the power and presence of the universe, the creator, creation of all things, the energy of love and wisdom and peace. You are the captain of the ship, the navigator, the map maker. And the faster that concept is your concept, is your map of reality, the faster your reboot is accomplished and the farther you will sail to your best life. The map of your reality is a changeable map. If it goes into chaos, the chaos is just part of the process of the upgrade and the reboot of the Mapquest. Know that you're not falling apart. You're merely trading an ineffective version of Mapquest for a better one with new paths, new ways, new and more positive, effective routines leading towards the reward of a more loving, affluent, creative, successful, and joyous life. When we reboot our Mapquest, we will allow better ways to manifest our best life. Fear not. You are growing. You are evolving. And you shall transform and transcend to a new and greater map. The map of peace and love and beauty and wisdom and revealing the divinity in you. Thank you so much. Namaste.